It's time now for County-Wide, a special presentation of Yavapai Broadcasting News. Join Paul David and Brad Miller as they talk with our community's leaders, newsmakers, and people in the know. You'll hear about the hot topics that affect all our lives here in Yavapai County. And now, here's today's County-Wide.
Broke out this week, Wednesday afternoon at 4 o'clock, and it has consumed the airwaves across the world, actually, in regards to this fire. Our guest today is the Assistant Park Manager from Slide Rock State Park, Frank VanDevender.
That's correct.
Welcome to studio.
Good to be here, Paul.
Thanks for coming in. I was wondering if you were going to be able to make it in because of the fire this week. And then I had actually emailed Ryan yesterday. I said, if he can come in, we're not going to be able to talk too much about Slide Rock State Park, but see if he can tell us about the fire, because that is what everyone's talking about. And I was telling you before the show, at about 9 o'clock yesterday morning, I don't know what happened, but it was really easy for me to get information from everybody that's local that I normally deal with. But that Sedona Oak Creek Canyon clicked in somebody's head, and they said, oh my gosh, that's one of the most beautiful places in the world. And it went around the world. And now it's almost impossible to get our local people on the phone anymore because of that, because of the popularity of Slide Rock State Park in Sedona. What can you tell us about the slide fire?
Well, it's the high winds, the extreme fire behavior, the steep topography are making this a very hard fire to fight, very dangerous fire to fight. To my knowledge, there is very little to no containment of it. They are really hoping the fire doesn't cross over 89A and travel into Pump House Wash and go straight towards Mountain Air and Kachina Village. That's their worst fear, is that the fire travels that direction. We
were looking on the map before we got on the show, and we were looking for Forest Road 535. That seemed to be a big key yesterday, was the crews were doing backburn operations there. And you could almost see the change in the plume of smoke coming up off that fire yesterday. And I was working in the Flagstaff office yesterday, I told you before the show, and ash is falling out of the sky, and that's the first time I've ever experienced that with one of these wildfires. And every now and again, about a quarter-size piece of ash would come in that was just jet black. And when I heard that they had a pre-evacuation notice for Kachina Village and for Forest Highlands, I thought to myself, I need to get to Mountain Air, where I live, and get some things packed up just in case. But yeah, like you said, Pump House is the key right here, right now, isn't it?
Yeah, it's at the base of the switchbacks. There's a lot of fuel there, and chimney type effect. Fire can race right up the canyon wall. When it gets to the top, it flattens out, and the fire can go straight towards, Kachina Village, where from right now, the fire is only like 3 miles away, and that's why they issued the pre-evacuation notice, where if it got much closer and crossed into Pump House Wash, they were going to, force the evacuations if necessary.
Are you able to kind of paint a picture for me when I'm driving through Oak Creek Canyon where I'm going to run into Pump House Wash? It's something that's going to trigger in my head that says that's Pump House Wash? Sure.
It's signed. It's from Slide Rock State Park to Pump House Wash is probably about 6 miles due north of us.
Okay.
It's the last bridge crossing you come to before the switchbacks
That's
start.
The Pump House Wash Bridge, right? Okay, I believe ADOT just said that that's like a historical bridge from like 1931 or something.
Yes, it is.
Bridge. Okay,
yes.
So that's the Pump House Wash right there.
Yeah, it's basically the start of the switchbacks that travel, uphill to the overlook point.
Okay, so we're trying to keep it down in the canyon. And they're also trying to keep it, if I'm driving north through Oak Creek Canyon, they're also trying to keep it to the left, the west of 89A.
Yeah, to the west and north of 89A.
There's so many homes back in there. There's so many structures, and I know yesterday it missed Garland's, it missed Junipine.
Yep.
But I know there's quite a few homes along there.
Yeah, they, when the fire broke out, they evacuated everything within basically 2 miles north of Slide Rock to the Junipine Resort. And those basically people had no choice. They, were asked to get out or else.
Yeah. Now this fire touched off Wednesday. 4 o'clock was when the plume of smoke was seen.
Tuesday.
Tuesday. That's right, today's Thursday. The days are starting to really melt in together here for me. But Tuesday, 4 o'clock was when that fire touched off. Were you at the park that day?
I was not. It was a day off for me. I heard about it very, very quickly through coworkers and our public information officer.
What they described to you?
Started small. You know, it was seen from the roadway and reported. It was between our property boundary along the creek and halfway picnic area, which is about 0.8 of a mile north of Slide Rock State Park.
What's your boundary?
It's from Oak Creek Bridge, basically, to as the stream travels upstream, about a half mile north of Oak Creek Bridge along the creek bed.
Gotcha.
Yeah.
Okay. So there's a fire. We've got a small fire. Then what happens?
It went from being a small little brush fire to 20 acres to 450 acres to now they estimate it's at almost 4,500 acres.
Right. That was last night too.
Yeah. And the winds have been horrific. They pick up, it seems, between 9 and 10 in the morning, and gusts, they've had gusts 30 to 40 miles an hour, and it has really fueled this fire and, pushed it uphill.
Now, are you going up there every day?
Yes.
Okay. Are you going back further in past Slide Rock at all?
I'm basically at Slide Rock State Park. Incident Command is out of the park there. We're basically help support fire operations is our task. We have some creek pumps that we're trying to keep running to, bring water up from the creek to fill tanks and tanker trucks and some of the water pumpkins that they're using for dip tanks, that kind of stuff.
Okay, so those big pools that they set up on the ground, you guys are actually filling those right there at Slide Rock.
We're doing our best. The pumps have limited capacity. They can't quite keep up with some of the bigger equipment, but that's been our objective. They've cut the power from Slide Rock north, and so we're on, been using backup generators and those kind of things.
What's it like to be? It's not tourists.
No.
It's not people in bikinis and cut off jeans and banging their heads on the rocks and stuff, sliding around and having a good time down at Slide Rock. It's a totally different scene for you up there. It's
all about business. There's fire personnel everywhere, hot shot crews, tanker trucks, helicopters. That's what Slide Rock is right now. It's incident command post, and it's not tourist season. It's down to business. Let's fight this fire. Let's get it put out.
So, as an incident command post, what does that include in that area? What if I went to Slide Rock State Park today? What am I going to be seeing there?
You're going to see firefighting personnel everywhere the eye can see.
How many are there?
I don't know the exact numbers. I know the crew jumped in size dramatically when they saw the threat of this fire spreading. I believe they have as many as 500 firefighting personnel on the fire. They're asking for additional hotshot crews to show up, and I guess they're bringing in that DC-10 for suppression as well. That was supposed to happen yesterday afternoon, and then they had to ground all air suppression efforts because of the high winds.
Right. Yeah, which has got to be a horrible thing for them to have to do that.
Yeah, having the air support is a huge factor in helping suppress these fires from spreading farther.
Are the helicopters landing there at Slide Rock too?
They do.
There's a ton of fire engines there.
Yep, exactly. And tanker trucks, and I think even some of the guys have, if they elect to want to camp out, they can pitch their tents and stay right there and, fresh.
So the firefighters aren't necessarily staying at Slide Rock in the parking lot there?
Some of them are. Maybe, yeah.
Okay. I had a question for you. Let's take our first break.
Sure.
Okay. Frank VanDevender in studio today. He's the Assistant Park Manager at Slide Rock State Park. We're talking about the Slide Fire. This is Countywide. I'm Paul David. We'll be back in just a couple minutes.
All right. I know this isn't any fun to talk about, but we should. Okay, so who's going to do what?
I'll pack the dead batteries.
Great.
I'll only put what I don't need into a duffel bag.
Perfect. That's totally unhelpful.
No problem.
Meanwhile, I will try to comfort everyone by speaking in a calm voice.
And I'll try to get the generator going without any gas.
Oh, let's not forget the cell phones, which probably won't work.
Right.
And who is going to handle supplies?
I can forget to do a list for us.
Thanks, pal.
Well, I think we couldn't be any less prepared. I'm proud of you guys.
Talk to your kids about who to call, where to meet, what to pack. Visit ready.gov/kids for tips and information.
Welcome back to Countywide. We're talking the slide fire this morning, Slide Rock State Park. Our guest today, Frank VanDevender. He's the assistant park manager. You've been there for 12 years?
Going on 14.
14 years, all right. And I've already promised Frank that we've been doing kind of state park shows this month to just kind of get us all reintroduced to our local state parks. We'll have him come back in and do another show, and we'll talk just about Slide Rock State Park. But I'm so glad you're here to give us what information you can about the slide fire. One of my questions for this fire, and since Tuesday at 4 o'clock until this morning, is what I've noticed about that fire is that it is, boom. I mean, it ran fast. Are you able to tell us, you look at the Schultz fire in Flagstaff, you look at the Brins fire that happened in Sedona back there on Grayback Mountain and then traveled up into the canyon. It was stopped before it got too far in there. And then also the Dosey fire, Yarnell Hill fire. Those fires burned so hot that everything was destroyed in its path, everything. And then the ground became that sort of that glassy type material almost because it was so heated. I'm wondering, is this fire burning through Oak Creek Canyon in that fashion where it's burning everything down to the ground, or is it running through stuff so fast that it's just clipping right along and we still have some trees and we still have some things left?
I haven't been there on the ground to witness the aftermath of what's burned and what hasn't burned.
Okay.
I do know it's traveling very quickly due to the presence of very dry fuels and the winds and the topography. It's a very fast-moving fire, to my understanding, and I don't believe it's charring everything completely right down to the ground. I just know that it's moving quickly, and that's been the hardest thing for them to combat is trying to get ahead of it. There's, as far as I know, zero containment, or if there is containment, very little containment. They've been trying to get out ahead of it and create some, defensive breaks, some fire lines, some burnouts. But to my knowledge, this is going to be a difficult fire to put out and stop because of the topography.
Now, I have heard a little bit, but it's not confirmed, that we made some pretty good progress last night. That Forest Road 535, I know that was key, and as you mentioned, the pump house wash is a key too. That's why I have our map here too, because we did find that on the map here, and we were taking a look at it. So I know those two areas have been really key, and so I know a Type 1 incident management team took over control of the fire last night at 9 o'clock, and they had a briefing of some sort at 6:40 this morning, and so I'm expecting that once we're done with the show here, I'll get some extra information. It'll probably be about, I would imagine, closer to 10 before I have some really current information on the fire, because everything we have now is from late yesterday afternoon and yesterday evening, the 4,500 acres. I'm sure it's probably gotten much bigger than that. So back to what I was saying, that was one of my concerns that I was thinking about, is if it really burns the heck out of this vegetation, there's not going to be anything down there in Oak Creek. But if it's moving fast, I guess a fast-moving fire could probably be a blessing, right? Because then it's traveling through, it's burning some things, but then it's moving through that area, and some of it's being left behind.
There again, I don't know what's being left behind versus what's been charred. Haven't been up there personally to witness, where it's burned versus where it hasn't. So I feel uncomfortable addressing that, I guess.
Okay, that's fine. That's fine. How about this? Do we know if a rehabilitation team has come in? We learned a lot over the last couple of years about these BEAR teams, these burned area emergency response teams, and they tend to arrive. The fire started right there between Slide Rock and Halfway Picnic area. Once that fire's out of the air, it seems like they almost plop right in and get busy and, okay, what do we need to do? Because it never fails. We have these wildfires just before the monsoon hits. Do you know anything about that right now?
I have not heard about planned revegetation efforts. I know after the Brins fire, it seemed to happen pretty quickly, you know, within weeks to months, especially the area directly south of us towards Encinoso. That whole area there was burned pretty good, and they were dropping straw and seed from helicopters and whatnot. And I don't know what the plan is yet for this. I don't even think it's a consideration yet, to be honest with you. I think because they don't have a handle on the fire, their focus is, let's stop this fire. We'll worry about revegetation after. I
think to myself, I think ahead, and I think, okay, the fire is burning right now, but I see the monsoon coming in, and I actually need to call the Weather Service and find out what kind of monsoon maybe we're expecting. I guess that's kind of a difficult thing for them to think of. But I just, knowing what happened with the Schultz fire, the Dosey fire, the Yarnell Hill fire after, and then the monsoon arrived, you know, it's been pretty devastating.
Could be a recipe for disaster, you know, after that Schultz fire, you know, the heavy monsoon flash flooding that occurred and the mud flow and debris flows that happened were really bad. It's
almost like it created its own weather pocket right there. It almost seemed like every day those clouds would come in and sit right over the Schultz burn area. We had a 12-year-old girl die in the flooding that was there. Numerous homes destroyed by the flooding and roads washed out. County water lines were destroyed. So yeah, it's not just the fire right now. I mean, there's this after effect that I've been thinking about lately, and I'll try to find out more information about that. The day the fire started, I'm sure you and your fellow workers up there, what was it like to evacuate all those people out of Slide? Because I've driven by Slide Rock, and at 4 o'clock in the afternoon, I guess maybe it's slowing down a little bit at Slide Rock, but it's usually pretty packed.
Yeah, the park, you know, it was not full. I would say there were, you know, we had probably half the parking lot full at that time of the day. Probably a few hundred people down within the creek bed. It needs to be a coordinated effort. You know, we generally have anywhere from 4 to 10 people on staff, depending on the day of the week and whether it's a holiday versus a regular weekend. And we basically have a set game plan.
What is that game plan when something like this happens?
Well, we get rangers down at the creek, and we make contact with everyone who may be involved with being in our parking lot, and we tell them, you know, hey, look, you know, fire, it's time to evacuate. Please move out, you know, and try not to, you know, create a panic mode.
Right.
Just, you know, get them moving in, you know, a positive direction, and encourage them.
Which is out.
Which is out and south, you know.
Yeah.
You generally want to send them, you know, the opposite direction of where their fire is.
Of course, yeah.
And to my knowledge, the evacuation of the swim area and the park went pretty smoothly.
I don't know if you can answer this one for me, but my wife actually had this question. She said, what about those people that hike way back in there?
Those are the difficult ones, you know. Sometimes we have people who are, you know, their car's in our parking lot, and they could be off on a hike, you know, not adjacent to the swim area.
Yeah, they could be 5-6 miles back in there.
They could be. Generally, they aren't, but we do have problems finding people, and that can pose its own special issues where, you know, you think you've made contact with every visitor, you know, that's been in the swim area, and you get back to the parking lot and you're still waiting on a few cars. And, you know, you start to wonder, you know, where are these people? Are they out in harm's way? And that can be hard because, you know, Oak Creek Canyon's a big place. It may seem small and, you know, confining, but there's lots of places to hide out there.
There's a lot of places to get tucked away back there. Frank VanDevender, our guest today. He's the Assistant Park Manager at Slide Rock State Park. I'm Paul David. We're going to take a quick 2-minute break, and Countywide will be right back.
Thanks for calling the GED Pep Talk Center. Jerry Stiller speaking. Your level 7 in-your-face pep talk.
I can keep pushing you. Believe me, I'm good at it. But at some point, you're going to need to start pushing yourself.
See, once you've got your GED diploma, you'll feel so good about yourself.
You tell them. You can't change the past, but you can definitely change the future.
That makes me so happy, I'm ready to bust out a dance.
Mr. Trejo, can I transfer this guy to you? My gentle technique isn't really working. You need something a little more...
persuasive?
Yes.
You listen, and you listen good.
Hey, where's my sandwich? Terry? Terry!
Take it from me, the King DMC. It's a real cool thing to get your GED.
Get that diploma!
Now hold on and we'll find you free GED classes.
Capiche?
Whatever motivation you need, we've got a pep talk for you. Get your GED pep talk and find free classes at yourged.org.
I'm one unlucky guy. The chance of being involved in a robbery is 1 in 757. The chances of being struck by lightning 1 in 750,000.
Please fasten your seatbelts for unexpected turbulence.
The chances of being a victim in an airline crash 1 in 29 million. Hey, could I get some peanuts? The chances of being involved in a car crash are far greater than lightning strikes and plane crashes. And if you are texting while driving, your risk of crash increases 23 times. Now, I may be an unlucky guy, but I don't have to be part of that statistic, and neither do you. Drive responsibly.
Welcome back to Countywide. We have a couple minutes left in the program. Frank VanDevender, our guest today, he's the Assistant Park Manager at Slide Rock State Park. Of course, we've been talking about the Slide Fire, which is burning since Tuesday at 4 o'clock, and now here we are on Thursday morning, and I'm hoping to get a lot of new information about the fire and have that on a little later on this morning. So I've been working on that all morning, but we've got Countywide to do, and we've got all these other things going on, so, you know, we'll get it together when we get it together. Slide Rock State Park, the power's out there. You're running generators. You guys obviously are hoping to open back up soon.
Yeah, how soon is soon? I'm not sure.
Right.
We will open as soon as the threat of wildfire has passed.
Mm-hmm.
When that is, I don't really know. Could be multiple days, could be a week, could be, it all depends on this fire, how fast it spreads, how easy is it to get a handle on and put out.
One of my other thoughts was the old flume that carries the water to the apple barn. And as you drive through Oak Creek Canyon, the times when I used to fly fish in the canyon, I always thought it was very interesting to be down on the water's edge and you'd look up on your canyon wall. We've got about a minute left and we might as well hit this too. There was this old metal flume and you could see where the guy blew holes through the rock side to get that flume to go through there. And he engineered this flume to take the water from Oak Creek and bring it to his apple orchard. And I was thinking about that old flume too. Is it still there? Is it still going to be there?
Yeah, the flume is still there.
Is it? Okay, all right.
You know, it's up above the creek bed, probably about 100 feet above.
Mm-hmm.
It's a lot of it's made out of metal, suspended with planking and steel suspension cables, where it almost looks like a suspension bridge.
Right.
And there are two, tunnels that are bored through solid
I've
rock.
seen it's really amazing. It's a really amazing feat for something that happened so long ago.
I think the majority of that will stay intact and be okay. Just due to its location, and there's not a lot of fuel near it. It's mostly running next to rock and mountainside.
Well, we're out of time, but I thank you for coming in and giving us what insight you have on the fire. I appreciate that and all the help you've been given up there on the Slide Fire. We should thank our firefighters, too, for all the work they're doing to, try to put this out. I find it amazing that we've not lost any structures yet. There's been no injuries reported. It's really amazing with something, when you've got 40-mile-an-hour winds blowing up that canyon, having a fire start at Slide Rock State Park and make it all the way up almost to Pump House now. It's just amazing.
Yeah, it is amazing.
We can only hope a lot of it survives up there.
Thank God for our firefighters.
Yeah.
Thank you that the fires in San Diego slowed down.
Yeah.
We were able to pull resources off that to bring over to here. This is now probably one of the most priority fires in the country.
Most definitely, and I hear we have another one over by the Payson area too. Woods Canyon Lake has got a fire going as well. So, all right, and Stage 2 fire restrictions go into place Friday morning at 8 a.m. on the 23rd of this month, May. So, thank you so much, Frank. Good to meet you. Thanks for coming in, and we'll have you come back in again, and we'll focus solely on Slide Rock State Park and what it has to offer the people. I'm Paul David. That's today's Countywide. We'll talk to you again next time.